Hi, welcome to Candor Beach, where we bring to you our take on world events and how they impact consumer psychology in India and around the world. I'm Ashish, a management consultant and marketer.
Hi everybody, I'm Sailesh. I deal in financial instruments, especially in lending.
Right, and today we're going to be talking about, well, Sailesh, what's today's topic? What is this meeting titled?
I think we're talking about the topic is
Just waking
just
up.
woke up, or like I would say, like the corp. We talk about the corporate woke culture, how it's affecting the corporates, how it's affecting the people itself. The employees. Um, how it affects
Society, I think, in general.
society. Yes, exactly. So how I think how well is it integrated into society?
Right, so last time we were talking about ESG, where we did talk about a social impact of sorts.
Yeah.
So this time, so when Sarish and I were talking about what we should talk about next, um, this just sprang to mind. It was just seemed like a logical follow-up. So Sarish, what are your thoughts on wokeism in general? And when I say wokeism in general, I mean like, what does wokeism mean to you? Like, let's define this to begin with.
I would say wokeism is basically inclusion of everybody and basically showing equality to
Hmm.
everybody in the group. Let's say in a company, all the employees together have to be equally treated. That is wokeism. In concept, it's a fantastic concept. In practicality, that's something we can debate.
Right. Just to qualify your response a little further, I would say that the potential distortion in wokeism, I think, has come from people confusing equality of opportunity with equality of outcome. And I
Yeah.
think that is one of the key problems that we're faced with today. People are looking at, as an example, reservations. When the reservations came to be right after the Great Depression to get people out, like that was part of the what was that movement called? The first I forget. I'm going to look it up. But when the reservation first came to be, it was basically the idea that one generation would have it, and it was their job to uplift their families and society at whoever they were connected with.
Yeah, I mean,
But
reservations. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I'm saying reservations should be done with a time period. So even if you look at India, in reservations in India with regards to reservations for certain castes, the guy who wrote the Constitution himself said it. So it has to come with a particular time period. Post that, it has to expire, and then people need to be integrated into society. So yeah, reservations are important to uplift people, but how long will they actually need to be lasted? Like you said, a generation probably, or two generations, and post that they need to expire.
Yeah, it was called the New Deal. That was the term that I was
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
for.
the New Deal,
Yeah,
FDR, right?
yeah. The thing was, it was quite clear. Like you are responsible for uplifting your family, and that the reservations were given to one generation. There were people who required it. Here in India, particularly, I understand that there is a significant populace that is impoverished, that they do require assistance. But I feel like at some point in time, if you are guaranteeing reservations for the family and generations beyond, how are you incentivizing these people to change their lot? But that's very reservation focused. I feel like wokeism, like connecting the dots, I feel like wokeism is, there are aspects to this equality of outcome that shared negatives with this whole reservation concept. What are your thoughts there?
So the reservation concept is pretty much similar here or in the West. We have a reservation concept even in America. It's called the affirmative action. So it gives a certain push to the marginalized society However, it actually reduces the merit. So you basically, reservations with a certain amount of merit actually will work. Reservations
Why?
without,
Is it because it's not fair?
it's not fair because it actually completely stifles or reduces the guy who actually struggled and had the merit to get the seat, or or get into a, let's say for example, a college itself. How like somebody gets a very good percentile, they are actually have the merit to get into the college, and then you're going and giving it to somebody who is below the 70 or 50 percentile because you have to fill up a quota.
Now, the argument that was made was that so say you and I, as an example, say I have the reservation and you don't at this point in time. The argument here is that you were given these, like ancestrally, or your previous generations were given the rights that brought you to this stage. And therefore you are able to avail of the facilities that you are right now. You are much further ahead in from a societal aspect than I am. That was the concept that reservation was trying to correct, right?
Sure, but you have to do it from childhood. You cannot just start giving reservations once you're in college. Build primary education, build secondary education and high school. Go up till there. Make sure the marginalized society are forced to go and finish their degrees, so they'll have an understanding of education. Instead of, there's a lot of dropouts. Especially in America, a lot of people drop out of high school. Instead, actually, you have to incentivize them to finish at least their high school. That will actually open their horizons to go get better education instead of giving.
My body, my choice. I don't want to do this. Why are you imposing education on me? You want me to be a productive member of society? What's wrong with you?
I mean, it's not about that. It's just education should be universal to everybody from childhood.
Now, what I was getting at is that this is how it's been distorted, hasn't it?
Yes, yes.
People are looking for all the advantages of reservations with none of the responsibility, so to say.
Exactly.
I mean, like, I know I misquoted my body, my choice. That was not related to what I was getting at. It was just helping me make my point.
No, but the thing is, like, see, during the 60s, they enacted the law where they give kids in schools lunch, free lunch. Free lunch will be provided in school. That actually improved a lot of people attending school. So all these kids, they didn't have to worry about, they're coming from poor neighborhoods. They can come eat now at school, and that's an incentive itself for them to.
Absolutely.
That itself is a fantastic idea, and that was done even in South India during the Tamil Nadu Jayalalitha regime. She was the one who started that actually incentivized education till high school. Those are the stuff which they need to be included in Western society to increase high school education till high school education.
As opposed to things like affirmative action, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, affirmative action, all that stuff comes in during college era. So once you go into college, they're actually being given quotas for that. But then you don't have enough merit from the people who are coming from the school to get into college, but they're just being given an opportunity because you're part of a certain marginalized society or marginal group.
We've seen that in India because we've obviously, the reservation system's been quite
used and abused.
Quite pronounced. I wouldn't say used and abused. I mean, simply because while it is a fact, I wouldn't say it. It's we've seen aspects of where it actually does help, obviously. But what I was getting at is we've seen the effects in India. We've seen that certain actors from marginalized societies who have achieved things based solely on their on these reservations find it very difficult to capture the opportunity that the reservation afforded them, simply because they weren't ready for that system. Like, as an example, getting into the IITs, why a reservation, if your score, for whatever reason, renders you incapable of comprehending what the environment provides you with, one, you're not capitalizing on the opportunity that it affords after, like after you graduate. Two, it must be a real struggle to go through school. Like, how do you pass classes when everybody else or a large margin of people there are just more capable at whatever field they've chosen?
Yeah, I mean, just imagine yourself. You're coming from basic. You're I wouldn't even say that. Like I would say, your intelligence is actually subpar, or you coming from basic
Let's
stuff.
not say intelligence.
Mm,
Intelligence can be inheritable. We're talking about capabilities per knowledge and experience that
sure,
has brought
yeah,
you to that.
yeah. I would rephrase it. Yeah, so the capability wise, you're going into an Ivy League school. So everybody up there are extremely capable. They have the intellectual capability and the the effort to put into it. But then you take somebody who doesn't have that push to go, and they just placed into this college. How much of effort are they going to really put into it? Because like you're going to
Some
feel.
do. Like, again, like what Salish and I are getting at, just so we are all clear, is we aren't generalizing to say that everybody is going to have this issue. There are some people who are there that shouldn't be, and there are some people who are there who definitely deserve to be. Please proceed, Salish. Sorry, just wanted to be
Yes.
clear. That.
Even in college, like, like how much of effort are they really going to put into it? Like in the work-wise, like, especially the curriculum on these, Ivy League schools is extremely toiling. Like
Yeah,
it'll break you to a point where like you can take minimum number of classes to be a full-time student, and they'll still break you. Like it's that like the work you need to put into it is
that
hard. So
intense.
yeah,
Right.
so how much of that intensity can you bear? Like if you're coming from us, if you're coming because of a quota, or you're not qualified enough to get that seat.
Now, can you shift the argument to corporations, because that's how we define wokeism.
Yeah,
So
corporations is
using the elements we've discussed
hmm
about.
So corporations now have this quotas too. So if you look at corporations, for example, let's take Twitter. Recently, Twitter fired so many people, and there was an outrage. Sure, there was an outrage, but how many of them core people are required to run that company? And it's showing right now. Twitter is working pretty normal, fine. Might have glitches here and there. However, it's still working without all that extreme amount of people who are working. Like so all these people were being hired to fill up quota jobs. Like, okay, yeah, so we have a diversity group. We have then, and
Do you know
they
this
they
for a fact?
yeah, they fired the entire diversity group, right?
Yeah, that they did.
Yeah. So and it's still functioning.
Or the world and stuff spinning.
Yeah, it's still functioning. It's Twitter is still
I mean, the
counts
principle
for it.
behind the principle behind making these changes wasn't obviously to deprive society or to say that, oh, we're against diversity and inclusion. I think the principle there was we're a for-profit organization and we need to work towards efficiency of operations and efficiency of cost. And there are certain overheads that don't make sense. I think that was the principle. It wasn't like get rid of diversity.
No, but
But
then yeah, that is agreeable. But what I'm saying is like they were inflating their employee count. So you didn't need so many people. You didn't need so many people to be having a diversity and inclusion team. You can have a small team and still be able to do that. The same thing with most of the other tech companies. Look at Facebook, look at Amazon. All these people were firing people, and
I've,
Facebook.
I've heard of diversity and inclusion, like just as a fun fact, heard of diversity and inclusion groups wherein they restrict how you can participate. You can't participate necessarily in uh, crafting the path that DNI is going to take. but you can participate in being one of the audience that DNI inflicts their notions upon.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, no equality of opportunity there, no. I've
Yeah.
heard of this.
So how much of equality of opportunity are these corporate companies actually,
Because people are so glued to equality of outcome more than opportunity.
exactly.
They're like, I'm not getting the same thing that this other person is, and therefore I am being and I am working equally hard. At the end of the day, it's not your call to make. If you believe that you are worth more than what you are getting at that particular juncture, move. Let the
Exactly.
market affirm your value.
It's like the participation certificate culture. Everybody gets a certificate. Everybody gets a medal. Just because you participated, not
I
because.
feel like the earlier system. I mean, an overly meritocratic society can be a little toxic,
Mhm.
but it also creates that crucible where it is the survival of the fittest, and it brings out the best in you. When
It brings
I'm
out the
giving
best
you,
in everybody. It's just
and when
it'll
I'm
make.
hand, sorry, I'm just going to finish a point that
Yeah, yeah.
you
Sorry.
had in fact brought up in conversation pre-podcast. It was so what you had said at that point was that if I am giving you the freebies that I am, if I am giving everything to you on a platter, you're not incentivized to get out of that rut. You are forever going to be stuck there. That is what happened with reservation in our country. People weren't incentivized to uplift themselves because these were freebies that they were getting, or not necessarily freebies, but advantages that they were getting over the rest of society that they wanted to continue to enjoy. And it became an incentive to maintain your reservations, no matter how wealthy, no matter how much you were, how politically, I don't know, is the opposite of backwards forwards here. No matter how forward you got,
It's
they weren't incentivized to get out of. They weren't
yeah.
incentivized to drop their reservations. Like as an example, the Gujarat and that Hardik Patel. How
Mm.
hard did he fight to get that reservation for the Patels?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it politically, it's like communism. What is the
Yeah,
incentive to what is the incentive for you to perform better when everybody's getting the same amount of return? So it's like you're not going to perform.
you don't have to,
Yeah, so everybody's
and
going
you're
to be
disincentivizing the people who are working hard for themselves.
exactly.
And this is something that Elon Musk, I believe, also said. Uh, I think what he had said was that the wealthy, the people who have run successful businesses, have shown that they are good at capital allocation, and
Yeah,
therefore they should be allowed to continue allocating capital for the betterment of society, as opposed to funneling this money into donations and taxes, wherein the government, who has shown themselves historically incapable, who let's ignore the fact that they've shown themselves historically incapable. The fact is, if I were Elon Musk, I would have independence over how I execute my wealth, how I deploy my wealth over a long period of time. Governments are only there for 4 or 5 years. Half of that time they're using their time to campaign for their
campaign.
next
Yeah,
terms. Yeah. So if effectively you get 2 or 3 years to actually deploy those assets, and these assets don't necessarily reap benefits until the next term, like we have seen where government A implements things and government B takes credit for them because the effects were reaped in government B's terms.
yeah.
So it's not a good incentive structure
It takes a long time
societally.
for any like societal program to actually start fruition. So yeah, that is right. Government A will come and say something, and government B will be like, yeah, I also did it. I'm the one who did it. That is capital allocation have never worked very well with any kind of government, like regardless of what their political leaning is. So like you could see this in I don't know if you remember the Elon Musk had this feud with the guy from World Hunger.
The World Bank,
Yeah,
World
the
Hunger,
the
right?
World
I
Hunger
remember
guy.
that.
Yeah,
It
that
was
was
like, give me a plan. give me a plan and I will
they
give
won't
you
give it.
this
They
share.
would, and they wouldn't be transparent about it. Like he said, okay, why don't you give me a plan, and whatever you spend, let it be on an open ledger. He
Right.
was he was completely adamant about it. He's like, no,
Flabbergasted, right.
I won't be able to do that. But he would give all these turnaround answers. How much are you going to give? Like
No,
six
so
billion is not
let's
going to create, feed the hunger.
sort of focus our arguments again. What do you think wokeism is doing to the corporates? We've, I think, discussed the peripheries of the effects that several movements have had and why wokeism has maybe come to the forefront. We've excluded certain topics as well, but I mean, not intentionally, of course. What is the effect that wokeism is trying to have on corporates and the effect that it is having on corporates? And the third question, what we must do or what we can see to maybe steer ourselves in the right direction to attain the objective, because we believe that the objective of wokeism was set out to be good for the betterment of society. So we're not arguing on that.
Yeah. So
right. So part B and part C, please.
Corporates, I think, are following this CEI index. So I would say the Corporate Equality Index, which almost all companies follow now. So they get their score through it. So how well you're doing with the equality topics, or how well is your workplace equality towards everybody, people of color, LGBTQ, and all that stuff. So they're focusing so much on the diversity part of it. At the end,
how does it help them?
How does it help them? It gives them like a good score, which actually gives,
which translates to,
which will give them more lending money, like VC funding. So the higher the
that
score,
would be small corporations only then, right? Like what about corporations that are 12 billion, 20 billion dollars?
I would say 12 billion, $20 million. So how well? Yeah, the billion. How well are they placed in this score? Actually, how would I say that? They would be graded on a certain level. So
so in my experience, the benefit is employability. Like if I see that you score very high on the equality index, and I am a part of one of these marginalized groups, I would be incentivized to want to be a part of your organization, because externally I see that you are doing well for your like marginalized groups, as an example, or all groups within your system are being treated equally, are being given equality of opportunity. So it helps with hireability, in my opinion.
But they're marking the waters with if instead of equality of opportunity, they're giving more weight to equality of outcome. Like how much of merit is being throttled down because of
we honestly
the
can't
culture.
say, right? Like unless a study is done, I mean, I have not looked it up. I should have, and I'll use ChatGPT. But until these studies are done, ChatGPT is so fantastic for research. I mean, I've stopped using Google as much, but
I mean, it's going to take time. Like all this is going to take time. The just like a government program, a scheme. This is going to be like 5-10 years down the lane. We're going to see the results of corporates going woke. So but the near term results are like the backlash. Like what my question is, how are the companies not even turning back or pulling back a little bit from the backlash they're getting? Just for example, Anheuser-Busch, recently.
You've been talking about Anheuser-Busch quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, why are they not turning back from it? Like, and then the CEO goes and deletes all his social media. He even deletes his LinkedIn profile.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. The CEO deletes it. The head of marketing, Alyssa Heinerscheid, deletes her entire LinkedIn, her Twitter, everything. So, which is, but they wouldn't come and not even say a small apology to their core clients. Like the core clients don't want the company to go woke, but then they're
Wouldn't
going
you say
ahead.
there's a misalignment in terms of hiring then? Like as an example, if you are my target audience and that has been my company positioning, at some point in time, my org structure has not been aligned with my own positioning, because org structure needs to be aligned with a mission and a vision, right?
Yeah.
And my mission and vision can evolve over time. And that is going to result in my hiring, ideally. Like I think the best example for hiring was with one of the best examples was with Airbnb, where they hire. They're very strict about who they hire. These people have to meet certain criteria that they've listed in among their core values. Similarly, Amazon has tried to do that with their leadership principles as well, as examples. Now, maybe Anheuser-Busch, AB InBev have failed at some point in time. There has been an evolution that some people have missed the bus on, and so the target audience is no longer being kept in mind when these new people were hired, these new people who made these decisions that did not go well with the target audience or their core audience, pardon me.
Yeah, like that's where corporates, and then you didn't do your basic research, being a part of the marketing, that who your core audience is, like, and how much of these, a lot of Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch products are sold in the rural areas of America, the rural bars, the little small pubs like that. But how much of they didn't do the initial research to not see the backlash, or they knew it and then they were like, you know what, this is going to die down over a period of time. That's what even Wall Street is predicting. That even there was a report from Citigroup saying that, yeah, it's going to eventually going to die down. Give it some time. But it wiped out $7 billion off their market cap as of right now.
Right, because principally, again, these activities, the things that wokeism purports, theoretically, again, are to the benefit of society. They're supposed to be good, but they have had negative impacts. Like as an example, there was a study that showed that in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, there's this study that said that individuals who were primed to think about their cultural identity were more likely to favor members of their own ethnic or cultural group over members of other groups. And so that creates a certain disharmony when I'm seeing that, again, considering affirmative action or whatever reservation. There are also studies, however, that show that there are people who have made it, so to say, from certain groups that show less sympathy because they have gone through the grind and you have not.
Yeah, that is true.
There was
the psychology.
Yeah, there was this HBR study.
Yeah, the psychology.
There was this HBR study about how. Sorry, go ahead.
The psychology changes completely. Like even let's say somebody comes from the marginalized group, right? And he struggled. He had he's worthy enough to get into this Ivy League college, gets it in, and he actually double struggled from the normal kid, and he will actually appreciate that more than the guy who got in because of the quota.
I'm not saying that might be true. I'm not that wasn't my point. My point was that this guy who struggled, or this woman who struggled. Now, the example that was quoted in HBR, I think, was more along the lines of woman needing maternity leave found more sympathy with a male boss who had to empathize with her condition than a female boss who had lived through it and figured that if she had done it, why couldn't this other person? Like, I've gone through it, I've managed it, why shouldn't you? That was what I was getting at. So there are arguments, there are flip sides, and anyway, I think
that's a
closing
fantastic
thoughts.
concept. I didn't even think about it. So that's a fantastic concept. That is true.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Contrarian.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we've been on this for 30 minutes. I know there's a lot for us to still talk about, and maybe we can take this up on another podcast. But closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. I think it can be a lot of this woke ideology can evolve, and also include lot more, equality of outcome, equality of, opportunity more than equality of outcomes. I would, they should also think about that as corporates need to work on evolving this woke ideology more and give it a better thought.
All right. So for me, I haven't brought this up, but I feel like some people have embraced wokeism a little more than other groups have. Like some people, particularly those who believe they've come from marginalized groups, historically marginalized groups, they've embraced this concept a little more than other people have. And they're trying to wield it like a sword to a point where at a certain, to a point where it gets like the objectives of wokeism, the good parts get obfuscated in the whole execution part of it. Like, I know this is right, I know this is good, the society agrees with me that this is right and this is good, but am I executing it to the best? Am I executing it in a manner in which everybody in my system is benefiting, or everybody in my system is truly equal, as opposed to groups that I'm pushing, or as opposed to groups that I belong to? Because it gets hard, right? Like this this thing I was quoting, the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, where people tended to favor their own ethnic groups. It can happen. We're human after all. It's subconsciously, and I'm not trying to harm you. I'm not trying to exclude you. It just happens sometimes. Like that was why like racism and this secularism and whatever else, like that was because you don't belong to the same group. There's this group association. I think we need to break this group association. Like, you are a human being, I'm a human being. The color of your skin does not change that fact. Your gender does not change that fact. Who you love, who you want to be with does not change that fact. And therefore, I need to treat you as I might want to be treated myself. That segregation, that groupism, I think, is the fundamental issue that is causing problems in execution. And that is what I would like to leave the audience with. Maybe that is something that we need to address. We'll take this up on another topic, on another episode. Thank you so much for your time, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, everybody.